This episode of Techzilla is sponsored by Toyota. Let's go places. I asked the CTO Rob Demillo what his top 5 things were from Google I/O, and he responded: 1, Chrome Pixel; 2, changes to Google infrastructure to start to fold all their services together; and 3, 4, 5, Glass. And I thought, wait a minute, Glass might actually be serious. Rob Demillo, Chief Technology Officer, Revision3. Welcome back to Techzilla.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
I don't know, it sounds like it's going to be a very strange year at Google. Shove all the services under one interface and do head-mounted displays.
They're very busy. Yeah, they got a lot of stuff going on. It was definitely, out of all the Google I/Os I went to, it was the one that had the least amount of gadgets, this notwithstanding, and was the one that revealed the most about what they plan to do for the future.
So the big thing for the future is, okay, so we kind of knew that YouTube was going to fold into G+, which might kind of fold into the search interface, but now it sounds like everything Google hosts is all going to be in one unified interface.
Yeah, it's all coming together actually quite nicely. So they've got rid of Gtalk, and I still insist on calling it Gtalk, but they've replaced it with something called Hangouts, which is the Hangouts that you may be aware of from Google+, folded in with all the Gtalk functionality plus the Google+ Hangout video scenario.
So it's basically like Google Hangouts, it's like Google Communications tools.
Yes,
okay.
And it is squarely aimed at iMessenger and a bunch of these other facilities. And it runs across all platforms. So it runs across Android, iOS, your Chrome browsers, that sort of thing.
One of the things, I love Google, I love their technology, I use Gmail. I've always thought to myself, if they just hire a user interface designer, because the idea of everything's going to be under one interface is like, okay, one point of access, this is great. One point of fail, well, that's fine. I'll use a good password. I have two-factor authentication. But Google's made some awful UI decisions in the last few years.
Well, they have. It's a company that was built, designed, and constructed by engineers, and that showed in basically every way that you can imagine. But there was an inordinate amount of UIX and user interface sessions going on at Google I/O this year, and I attended several of them. And by far the one that impressed me the most was run by Tom Broxton and John Sassoon, called Designing Products for a Multi-Screen World. And they took a very design-centric approach to data visualization, which I thought was very interesting. So rather than a lot of designers that start with the workflow concept and how you want to use a system and this, that, and the other thing, they started at the bottom. They started looking at the data and what user engagement told them about YouTube and other portions of Google, and brought all that stuff up and put it into user interface design and codified it that way. And the result is pretty impressive, I have to say.
That's all. I mean, because it's so funny because I remember one of the last Gmail upgrades being like, okay, so we're changing icons that millions of users no one are familiar with random changes and stuff. So
that's going to continue. That will continue. Oh. That will continue. But what they're doing is they're bringing all the services together. So, for instance, when you get on Messenger and you use it for chatting or video or whatever it is you want to use it for, it will show up as a Gmail message as well. It will show up on your phone. It will show up as a notification and an alert.
This sounds a lot like sort of the unified communications and collaborative workstation. Like Outlook, for example, has become this place for enterprise to bring everyone together and be productive. Is this the Chrome Pixel being at the top of your list? All I could think was, okay, this is the shot across the bow of Microsoft and Apple.
The thing to remember about Google at all times is they are a loss leader. Their entire infrastructure, the way that they think, the way that those people interact, the way they interact with the outside world is, we're going to give this a try and put it in people's hands and see what they do with it and productize it later and worry about monetizing it later.
And this is the actual Chrome Pixel we're looking at right here.
Yeah.
That they handed out at Google I/O.
They did.
The specs are serious.
It's a real machine, and it's not anything I would have purchased for myself. It's a $1,300 high-res display laptop that requires a connection to the net. But now that I have it, it's amazing. It really works extremely well. I would recommend it, actually, even at that price point, and it's a good box.
So what does Pixel mean for Google?
I think what Pixel means for Google is what Sun Microsystems tried to do back in the late 90s, before there was an infrastructure, where they had a motto that was, the network is the computer. I'm pretty sure that's the path that these guys are headed down with this. This is not a stripped down machine by any stretch of the imagination. It's fairly powerful, but there's almost no storage. And the reason for that is that they're relying on everything to come and go out of the cloud. And that aspect of it works tremendously well. If I do work here and I go back to my Mac on my desk, everything's there and it all runs.
So that also gives them the advantage of being able to skim all of the data passed over all of the networks all of the time and use that to mine information and, or I should say, mine trends and ideas.
Mine trends, ideas, target ads. I mean, all the stuff that they will use to monetize. And I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. My deal with Google is very simple to me. They will let me use their multi-billion-dollar cloud infrastructure and compute engines and all of their cool whizzy technology in exchange for them like peeping on stuff that I do so that they can target ads to me. And that's actually a good agreement, and I understand it, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's relatively anonymized.
And it's very anonymized, actually.
I just wanted to hear you say that.
It is actually very anonymized.
So let's talk about Glass 3, 4, and 5. I mean, Glass. You of all people.
Yeah.
You who have quite happily mocked things that Google has given you at Google I/O in the past.
I have, and I've become a convert. So I got involved in the Glass program at the last Google I/O. I signed up for Glass Explorers. I did the $1,500 plunk down of cash without actually seeing or touching this thing, and have been working with them through the Explorer group for the last year. And we were contractually obligated to not talk about it and couldn't take the machine outside the building. And by the sheerest of coincidences, my personal version of Google Glass was available for just as Google I/O was starting. It had nothing to do with Google I/O, it was just kind of a coincidence. So I picked it up on the first day, and I believe all the Glass Explorers, the early beta field testers, now have them, which means there's 2,000 of them out in the field. And there.
So you said you could actually show us what you see through the screen?
Yeah. So here's the deal. I did write a blog post about this that explains sort of more in depth of what I think the warts are on Google Glass, and there are warts, and where I think the problems are. Just to be really clear, this is not a ready for prime time system yet, and that's why there's only 2,000 of us that use them. But you can see where it's going, and from that point, it's actually kind of mind-blowing.
So are you saying in like 3 years everybody's going to have something like this strapped to their face?
I'm saying that within a year everyone will have the option to strap something to your face. So this is just a straight Android phone. It's the Nexus 4. Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen is what's being projected in my eyeball, and the camera actually can see what the prism is broadcasting into my eye. Touch the screen once. Record a video. So now what you're seeing is me recording you recording me. What's being reflected on the phone is actually what's being recorded through Glass right now. And yes, you can see Josh. That's exactly right, Josh. The other interesting thing is that the Glass is essentially completely hands-free. If I don't want to touch it, I don't have to. I just snap my head back. It shows up. OK, Glass. Take a picture. Done. What's interesting is there's a smattering, and by smattering I mean actual smattering, of applications available for Glass right now, and it was companies that wanted to put themselves out there and give this thing a try. There's two news organizations. There's CNN and New York Times, both of which have excellent applications. They will present you right away with information that is breaking news that you might want to see, and then it'll quickly disappear if you're not interested in it, or if you want to dive down deeper into it, it allows you to do that. CNN has videos that will play of the news reports. New York Times will actually read the news report to you. Now, and of course, the other applications are on here are things like Facebook and Twitter and some of the usual suspects. But the thing to stress is that for the last year, Google and Sergey and everybody else associated with Glass has been sort of showing this thing off as kind of a very expensive GoPro. It is not.
It's an interface.
It's more than an interface.
Okay.
It's actually the first time in years that I can think of that a device is fundamentally changing the way you interact with a machine. And I haven't seen anything like this. I would even argue that a cell phone never really changed the way that you interacted with it.
It just changed where you interacted.
Exactly, just changed where you interacted with it.
Windows 8 certainly didn't change how you interact with your computer, with all due respect to touching the screen.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it just gave you things to play with. I mean, probably you have to go way back to the desktop metaphor before you hit something as relevant as Glass. What Glass provides to you as a user is what I call a notifications-first operating system. This thing is off 95, 98% of the time. And it pops on and commands your attention when you have instructed it that it may be appropriate to do so. Right, and there is no analog to that anywhere else. Maybe notification bars in Android and iOS.
Well, you could talk about like Growl, for example, that started out in the corner of.
But that's an application. It's not an operating system. I mean, this entire operating system is based off of this premise.
Okay.
So if you want to interact with a tweet, or you want to interact with a friend, or you want to take a photograph of something, or you want to read a news report, or you want to get a restaurant review, or see where you are in your surroundings, it's all notification based. And it's a fascinating way to work.
And it's also something that means you're going to really want to filter what comes into Glass, or you'll go mad.
Oh yes, the initial Twitter app is driving me slightly insane because Twitter is trying to funnel everybody to a certain client application on various phones, and it uses those defaults and pushes that out to Glass, which means that anybody that I have set to register a notification with me, which is a lot of people, will immediately start flashing to the screen. So.
The future may be annoying. If you want Rob's full article, Rob's journey under Glass, go to notesfromtherocket.blogspot.com. We're going to have a link in the show notes. Mr. Demillo, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, Patrick.
Don't leave those laying around.
I will not.
We got more Techzilla coming right up. But before we do that, let's take a moment to thank one of our sponsors. Maker Faire is all about innovation and technology. That's why Toyota is here introducing their all-new 2013 RAV4 EV. All electric, all SUV. The RAV4 EV uses zero gas and doesn't emit any tailpipe pollution, giving you a quiet ride along with impressive handling. And the innovation extends to the car's interior as well, with a multimedia system with capacitive touch controls that let you select a radio station or adjust the temperature with just a tap of your finger. With the all-new 2013 RAV4 EV, Toyota combines innovation, safety, and refinement all in one eco-friendly package.